The Pope, the Prime Minister, and the pitiful silence that is me, hosting alone. Not so much news. Hello and welcome back to the Not So Much News on RUtv. I'm Anand, and I've been doing this for way too long. It's just so hard, man. Doing the news, the comedy. Sometimes I wonder whether anyone's even listening. And I realize I just don't care, because I can force people to come here and watch me.
Can we go now?
Moving on to our top story, Parliament's going through the motions. What does that mean? On Wednesday, members of the opposition banded together as one united force to strike at the heart of the Conservative Party. They passed a motion that prevents the Prime Minister from proroguing Parliament longer than 7 days unless the House agrees with him. Ha! Take that, Stephen Harper. What are you going to do now when you don't want to address an issue? What's that? It's not binding? Come on! You know what the Indians call that? Loose motion. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's what we call diarrhea. Jack Layton, the fearless leader of the NDP, said that the Prime Minister is not a king, and it's time he understood that. Who knows, though? Maybe Harper's been PVRing the Tudors and is getting inspired. Now all he needs is 5 more wives, declare himself the supreme head of the Catholic Church in Canada, and the sultry raw sexuality of Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. Here's hoping. In other Canadian news, there's a scandal of zoological proportions. The head curator of the Calgary Zoo has resigned over what I'm calling Gorillagate 2010. Kathy Gaviler was said to have resigned after a gorilla got loose last week from its enclosure. Apparently, a zookeeper forgot to check the moat around the enclosure, which had built up ice, allowing the gorilla to jump out onto the fence around it. Now, when I went to zookeeping school, I majored in moat engineering, so shame on you, sir. But is it fair to ask a woman who probably had nothing to do with the incident to resign? What's that? I'm getting word that there's a few more animals that have died in that zoo in the past. But can we really expect the zoo not to lose a few... What's that? A capybara, a hippo, a baby elephant, and a boatload of stingrays? Okay, maybe she should have resigned. Ironically, the aforementioned animals make a delicious stew. And finally, Toronto was in the news this week when Conservative MPP Bill Murdoch suggested that the city should be its own province. Yes, you heard me. Tired of the Toronto mentality of Queen's Park, he said that the rural parts of Ontario would actually benefit from this. David Miller then retweeted, in a completely unrelated move, that he wasn't stepping down as mayor and wants to be supreme head of the province of Toronto. Some really think, though, that this would be a good idea. The city wouldn't be so underfunded, we wouldn't send so much money back to Ottawa, and the other parts of Ontario would probably get a boost. Of course, this means that all the jokes I make about Markham being out of province all the more real. But Murdoch is suggesting that the more populated parts of the 905 should probably be part of the province of Toronto. So, in effect, he wants to separate rural from urban, because you city folk in your automo cars and Wi-Fi just don't get us. And what would be the capital of Ontario then? Guelph? I'll Werner Herzog my tie before I surrender that to Guelph. You heard me. You know, we commit a lot of blasphemy here on the Not So Much News. Wait, do you commit blasphemy or do you do blasphemy? Anyway, in a move to saving our immortal souls, I want to talk to you about the Pope. Or rather, Popegate 2010. His Holiness has come under a lot of heat lately, and it's not just the insulating capabilities of that robe. Apparently, news has surfaced about how the Pope had known about a German priest that was abusing children, had him rehabilitated, only to realize that he was later committing further abuses. Now that's how you use committed. Just like to a bad joke. To make papal matters worse, the Pope's brother was recently accused of slapping students when he was the director of a choir. Look, we've all been there. If someone isn't getting slapped, it ain't really choir. It's like Fight Club. No shoes, no shirts, and 2 guys always end up going at it. So the Pope's getting fired at from all angles here. But we have to remember, he was just the Archbishop during the abuse scandal. That's like deputy mayor. Nobody yells at the deputy mayor. At least, according to Spin City. Also, let's cut him some slack on his brother. If I had to deal with a bunch of sissy choir boys, I'd show him how my Pope hand is way strong, know what I'm saying? So lay off. And so we can finally just end the Popegate 2010. Now for all the news you didn't need to know, this is the Not So Much News in a Minute. The needle that was used to inject Michael Jackson moments before his death is now being sold at auction. Believe it or not, it's going to be on sale for $5 million. Now, say what you want about Michael Jackson, but the dude that buys that needle, leagues creepier. Bernie Madoff, everyone's favorite Ponzi scheming inmate, has had some bad luck in prison. Apparently he was roughed up by another prison friend over how much money Madoff owed him. I'd say that this is just desserts, but the term sweet thing is probably thrown around a lot in his case. Realizing that they haven't reached their really up quota, it's time for Japan's annual Penis and Vagina Festival. The festival, which draws 100,000 people, features exhibits like large wooden vaginas and penises. Ah, Japan, where termites are considered as STDs. A New Zealand man is in hospital after being run over by his wife. Twice. She backed out of the driveway completely, didn't realize what she was doing, and went forward. In her defense, she's 69. And in his defense, it takes him an hour to cross the driveway. And finally, children in North Carolina got a surprise last Tuesday as the Playboy channel was previewed on 2 kids' channels accidentally. It was apparently caused by a glitch in the equipment, but at least for a few short hours, fathers cared about what their kids were watching. And that's all we got here for the Not So Much News on RUtv. I'm Anand, and remember, don't make loose motions. Good night. The loose motion accent? I can do whatever I want. It is my show. Oh, it's pretty good. Yeah, like I'm not good at it before. Like I'm terrible.